Welcome back to another episode of Peak Performers Podcast. I'm your host, Thor Conklin. Have you ever thought about climbing Mount Everest? Well, certainly I had no inclination to ever climbing Mount Everest. I have not climbed Mount Everest, by the way. But a buddy of mine came to me and said, hey, how would you like to come to Vermont, travel up this mountain 17 times, Stratton Mountain, and it will be the equivalent of climbing Mount Everest, 29,029 feet, or an office building with 2,900 floors. What did I say? Hell yes, count me in. Stay tuned and find out the lessons I learned along the way.
Welcome to this edition of Peak Performance Podcast
with your host, Thor Conklin.
Thor will be sharing the necessary tools, strategies, and psychology you'll need to become a peak performer in any area of your life or business.
Thor Conklin here. We give you the tricks, the tips, the tools, the strategy, the technology, and the psychology peak performers use in order to get more done and execute at the highest level. If you know what to do but struggle with getting it all done, or simply want to raise your game to the next level, this podcast is for you. Sit back and enjoy. Okay, let me set the stage here. As you know, if you followed me for any amount of time, I'm always trying to figure out ways to expand myself, to grow, to learn, and become more, quite frankly, to challenge myself emotionally and physically. Last year, I trained with the Navy SEALs, and they pushed me to the limits and beyond my limits of what I thought was capable, both emotionally and physically. So when Jesse Itzler came up with the idea of renting out Stratton Mountain and climbing it 17 times to really push the limits of what I was capable of. I didn't even know if I could do it, but it sounded like an amazing challenge both emotionally and physically. I'm also getting ready next month to do a 100-mile race from Key Largo to Key West for women that have suffered traumatic medical issues. So I'm really looking forward to doing that. And what's great is having them back-to-back. I actually don't have to train so much for that one because I'm already in great shape as a result of the challenge on Everest. So that's kind of sets the stage of what we were looking at. Now, we had no idea what the weather was going to be like, and I trained at Stone Mountain, which is a mountain here in Atlanta, Georgia, and which is only about 750 feet in elevation. And quite frankly, it did not get anywhere close to preparing me for what was ahead of me. But I'm skipping ahead a little bit, but I just want to set the stage of what this event was all about. Now, the really cool part about this is there's 150 amazing people from around the world. The people that signed up for this event were just absolute badasses. I mean, amazing, amazing group. I knew it was going to happen that way, and it turned out exactly that way. In the field of 150, you have a girl that is going to be doing 7 triathlons on 7 continents in 7 days in January. An amazing athlete. You had a guy that rowed a rowboat across the Atlantic. As a matter of fact, it was kind of funny because he actually turned around after the event and said that's the hardest thing he's ever done in his life. I said, you do recall that you rowed a rowboat across the Atlantic? He goes, yeah, it was nothing compared to this, which was really interesting. A world record holder, the fastest man to summit the 7 summits on 7 continents, Colin. What an amazing badass this guy is. A matter of fact, at one point during the race, okay, this is a world record holder. He went up to 7 summits and the North Pole and the South Pole faster than any other human on the planet at any time. At one point during this race, I was actually only 50 feet behind Colin. So imagine this. World record holder, Colin, is in front of me. Only by 50 feet he's beating me. Now, of course, this was at the start of the race, and he quickly took that 50 feet and increased it by several thousand miles. But at one point, I was only 50 feet behind him. So I'm going to claim to that. We had pro athletes. We had 2 NFL players. The lead trainer from the Biggest Loser, the TV show, he was there. Countless marathoners, ultra-marathoners, fitness professionals. Lance Armstrong's trainer. Professional triathletes. I mean, for a living, that's what they do. They do triathlons for a living. They were at the event. And, of course, a host of other executives, moms, you name it. We actually had some kids that were probably 12 years old. Now, I signed up for this race approximately 4 months ago. 4 months ago. And there was a training schedule that came out. Matter of fact, it was kind of funny. I got the training schedule. It was a 10-week training schedule. I got the training schedule on week 8. I was like, I'm already 2 weeks behind. This is not going to be good. But my goal was very simple, to get up and down the mountain 17 times. Now, you walked up and you took a gondola down, or they had cars at night or trucks that brought you down. So you only had to walk up. You didn't have to walk up and down. So that was my goal, 17 times. I had an outcome. And if you've listened to me before, I distinguish between goals and outcomes. Your goal needs to be that lofty, directional vision of what you're trying to accomplish. But along the way, there's also outcomes. My outcome was, I didn't know if I could do it 17 times, but I knew I could keep going as long as the event was going, that I was going to keep walking, I was going to keep going. And I also had an outcome of connecting with people, because I knew there was going to be some amazing people there that I wanted to connect with. Now, I did not get my goal. I'm sad to report, I am disappointed that I did not get to the 17 times. I did not get that, but I did get my outcomes. Furthermore, I didn't get what I wanted, that goal, but I did get what I needed. And what I mean by this is I learned some really valuable lessons along the way, and I want to share those lessons with you, because this is where the real magic happened. And quite frankly, the lessons that I learned were more valuable than anything I could have gotten from this weekend. And what's interesting, had I gotten the 17 times up the mountain, I never would have gotten some of these lessons. And I needed to understand some of these lessons. I needed to learn these lessons now versus next month, next year. After 21 hours of climbing, I got 12 ascents or 12 summits done. Right from the start, I made some strategic errors. The first was we started walking or hiking, summiting, whatever you want to call it, around 2:30 in the afternoon on Friday. And this event was going to originally go until sunset, but then they decided a couple weeks ago to go all night. So what was going to happen, you could walk all night. You just needed a headlamp, and you could go as long as you wanted to. Well, I walked until 10:30 that evening, and I got 5 summits in. And the plan is to walk as far as I could, and then when I was, really kind of at the almost empty stage, I wasn't going to push it. I was going to get a good night's sleep, wake up at 5 a.m., and hit it again on Saturday morning, which I did. But what I found out was, very quickly, on Saturday, my time started to get slower. So by 2 o'clock on Saturday afternoon, when I really had time for about 2 more summits, that was it, I was not going to have enough time to complete the course or complete the 17 summits in time. Had I continued to hike Friday night into the night to midnight, 1 o'clock, or just went through the night like many people did, that would have given me enough summits on Friday, so when I hit Saturday and my time started to get slower, I would have been able to make it. So number one is I miscalculated strategically how many I needed to get done in the beginning. And I figured don't empty the tank all the way, just rest, then come back, hit it hard on Saturday. Not a good strategy. The second lesson was, if you recall, I had 2 outcomes. One was just to keep going as long as the event was open, keep walking as long as I could keep walking. And 2, I wanted to connect with people. And it's interesting. At 2 o'clock when I was doing the calculations to figure out how many more I could get done that day and was I going to be able to make the goal of 17 summits, I realized at that time that I was not. And what kicked in was my second outcome, and that is to connect with people. So I said, okay, look, if I can't finish the 17 summits and I can only get to 16 at best case scenario, why not take the next 2 hours and connect with people? Because I really wanted to do that as well. So I allowed my second outcome to get in the way of my first outcome. They were in conflict with each other. And I didn't realize that at the time. Make sure when you come up with a goal, you come up with an outcome, that everything is in alignment with that and supports that one thing and nothing is conflicting. Conditions change. Things change. In the beginning, we had beautiful weather. It was great. At night, things got more difficult. It got a little bit slower. You had headlamps, so you had to take your time a little bit more around some of the more difficult areas. At some points in the mountain, as you're going up, it's so steep that you can just reach out with your hand and touch the mountain. That's how steep it is. So you had to be very careful that you had good footing. It was wet. And Saturday morning, when we should have been using the gondola, which is very quick to come back down, it was too windy. So the gondola got shut down. You needed to take the cars back down to the summit. And in doing so, that slowed it down. It took probably about 30 minutes to come down by the car. And it was like 10 minutes by the gondola. So conditions had changed, and it added more time to every single trip up. Another key lesson, after walking up 5 or 6 times, your legs, after 1 or 2 times, your legs start to hurt, quite frankly. But you just get slower and slower if you just keep walking in a straight line straight up the hill or mountain. They keep calling it a hill. This was not a hill. This was a mountain. But if you keep walking straight up, you start using the same muscles. And then what I was doing is I was stopping along the way, kind of regaining my breath, letting my muscles, relax for a second, and then continuing on. And then what I noticed was people were doing kind of like an S movement up the mountain. So they were kind of walking a little sideways and then back, just kind of snaking up the mountain. What that did is it used different muscles in your legs, and that actually helped propel yourself forward and give the other muscles in your legs time to relax. At one point, I was actually going up the mountain sideways, leg over leg, foot over foot, going up sideways, doing it on the left-hand side, doing it on the right-hand side. So when you're working something and one way is you're getting tired doing it this way, the results are not as good as they have been in the past, change up your behavior. Change up the way you attack something. Use other strategies. And what was key here is these other strategies allowed me to continue to make progress, although it was not as fast as the other, 1 foot in front of the other straight up the mountain, but it still provided forward progress. Whereas when you stop and you're catching your breath, you're obviously not making any progress at that point. Another key lesson, and this was a big one, and this is the one that I really, really needed to understand and learn and get, and I got it. I came into this event at 218 pounds. Now, if you follow me on Facebook or any of my social media, I'm in shape. I'm in good shape, especially from where I came from before. And the key here is I'm in good shape. I am not in great shape. I'm not in exceptional shape. Now, I trained really hard for this event, and that was one thing that I put in my time. I trained with weights. I trained climbing up mountains. So I did the training piece. But my weight at 218 was really 20 pounds more than it needed to be. My weight needs to be 198. So if you could imagine walking up this mountain with 2 dumbbells, 2 10-pound dumbbells, on, one in each hand, doing that 17 times, that is not a good strategy. So coming into this event, overweight, carrying an extra 20 pounds was, quite frankly, unacceptable. And I realized that I've allowed a good standard to get in the way of an exceptional, of a great standard. So where in your life are you allowing a good standard to get in the way of what you really want, need, and desire? What you're truly capable of being and becoming? Figure out what that is. Establish that great, that exceptional standard, and live up to that. Another note on this part is, so often in business and in life, we're trying to figure out what we need to add, what we need to learn, what we need to put into our lives. Most of the time, the answer is, what do we need to eliminate? Figure out what you need to remove from your life, eliminate from your business, taking your foot off the brake, because so often it's those extra things that are holding us back. And in this case, carrying an extra 20 pounds up the hill, that was definitely something I did not need to do. In the beginning of the race, it was very crowded. And as the day and the race went on, people just got more spread out. And later into the night, there were fewer and fewer headlamps on the mountain. And because some decided to go to bed, I went to bed earlier than some, but I stayed up later than others. Some went in and had dinner. Others went in and checked the game. They had all kinds of different things. If you want to compete on the field, in any field, you've got to stay on the field, and you need to stay when everybody else goes home. I mentioned this earlier, but as time goes on, things start to slow down. As you get tired, your times get worse. It takes longer for you to accomplish the same things. So factor that into your plan. Your best time summiting the mountain is not going to be one that you're going to be able to do each and every time. Things change. It started to get windy. We had 50-mile-an-hour winds at one point in the race. You can imagine when you have a 50-mile-an-hour wind coming at your face, it is difficult to climb into it. Here's another interesting lesson. Things change. Remember what I told you at 2 o'clock on Saturday? I didn't have enough time to finish because I did the calculation. Well, guess what happened? And I should have thought about this, and I didn't, and it still makes me mad today. But again, it's a good lesson, and hopefully I'll never have to learn this lesson again. And that is, things change. What you think is the end might just get pushed further. Originally, the stopping point was 1 o'clock on Sunday. And since there was some delay, but the gondola was not working in the morning, they decided to add an extra hour to make up the difference of the people that had to take the shuttles down from the top of the mountain. And so now instead of having basically 7 hours to walk or hike on Sunday, we had 8 hours. Well, guess what? That extra hour, had I put in the extra 2 summits on Saturday, should have been enough to get me to 17. And another thing that I didn't factor in, and that was, as I'm climbing up on Saturday, even though the official end, was 1 o'clock on Sunday, that then got pushed till 2, what about at 2 o'clock when everyone goes home and all gets closed up? Was there a way to walk up the mountain? This is a public mountain. Walk up the mountain by myself with no crowds after the event was over and complete number 16, complete number 17 when nobody else was there? Of course there was. I would have had to walk back down, but could I have found a way to get in the 1 or 2 extra I may have needed at the end? Yes. The answer is yes. And that is probably going to haunt me for the next year until we do this again. Hopefully we will do this again. If Jesse puts it on, sign me up. I'm there. I will get 17. I've learned my lessons, I promise. Now, this is not a lesson, but I just want to make a point here as well. Always, always, always have something on you that you can make notes. Do not try to remember things, whether it's your phone, a piece of paper, a pencil, a pen. Have something that you can capture notes. As I'm going through this event, I'm constantly making notes to myself on my phone. So always, always capture notes. All right, this next one is not really a lesson, but it's really a distinction and maybe a warning for some of you, or at least a wake-up call. I get inquiries all the time. Thor, I've got this business. I'm just trying to figure out how to put it on autopilot so it'll just generate passive income and I won't have to do anything anymore. And, I won't even have to talk to customers and it'll just kind of run itself. Great concept. But I want to give you an example of what the truly, truly successful people do. Sarah Blakely, billionaire and founder of Spanx. She was in Africa with Richard Branson doing a charity event, got back into the United States on Wednesday, and then on Friday, she was up at Stratton with her husband, Jesse Itzler, participating in this event. Not only was she participating, but she had her CFO, her CEO, head of sales. They were all there. They were up early in the morning. They were out on the mountain, and they were going up and down, up and down. They were muddy. They were tired. They were fighting. I don't know how many each of them got, but I will tell you this. They fought the entire weekend. They struggled like everybody else. They were out there giving it their all. And I can guarantee you this. When they get back to the office on Monday, they're not in the boardroom sitting around going, okay, how do we create a business where we really don't have to do much and all this passive income comes in? They are out there fighting. They're still fighting. I pity the poor souls that have to compete against them. In your business, are you out there fighting? Are you out there expanding? Are you figuring out how to get dirty? Or are you trying to figure out how to make it easy? I don't know about you, but my team is all about rising and grinding, doing whatever it takes. So now what I'd like to do is I'd like to share with you some of the lessons that I learned, but I learned them through someone else or observing somebody else. The side of this mountain was still very, very wet. There was still a lot of runoff. There was little streams. There was mud absolutely everywhere. If you weren't careful, you could slip, you could fall. It was very treacherous. And I'm walking up the last day with Lindsay, and I'm kind of making my way around these like mud bogs, basically. All right, there's a way to go left, a way to go right. I'm trying to figure out the best path, and of course, going around left or right is a longer version because you're taking more steps. And Lindsay just takes off straight through this thing, straight through it. I'm like, "What are you doing?" She goes, "The only way to go is straight through." And I thought that was a great metaphor. Made a note of that. And thank you, Lindsay, for that. And congratulations on getting it 17 done. We had a chance to talk on Saturday night at dinner. And she was like, "I don't know if I'm going to make it. I think I'm only going to get up to 16. I said, "You got this, girl." And I met her on the 16th time going up the hill. Mountain. I got to stop saying hill. Mountain. And made sure that she was on her way, and she completed all 17. So congrats. This next piece of wisdom comes from Susie, an incredible author. She said, in the beginning it's easy because it's just starting. It's exciting. You reach that middle point. You can't see the end. You can't see where it's all going to stop. And it gets difficult in the middle. And then at the end, the end's in sight. There's an enthusiasm, there's excitement, and there's a renewed energy. And that's exactly the way the event went. Saturday was the toughest day. It was a beautiful day, but it was the toughest day. Sunday, I felt more energized, quite frankly, than I did on Friday. Also on Sunday, what you saw was other people getting it done. You saw them putting on their red bibs. That was their final ascent. And you could see the people grabbing the flags, they had these big flags, 29029, that they stuck in the ground as they got up to the summit for the last time. You started seeing other people doing it, and there was social proof. If they can do it, I can do it. So what project are you in the middle of? Are you in the beginning? Are you in the end phase? Or are you in the middle phase? If you're in that middle phase, keep going. Get someone on your team, someone who's going to encourage you, because it's difficult in the middle. But the end is near. If you're in the beginning phase, know that you're going to hit a middle, and it's going to get more difficult. Plan for it, but give it your all now. And if you're in the end phase, you can see that end, finish strong. When I finished this event, I shouldn't say I sprinted, but it was a pretty fast jog on the last 50 yards. I wanted to make sure, even though I didn't finish the whole 17, I finished strong. I'll end with this. No matter what it is, you need to ask yourself and get real with yourself. Are you interested in it? Do you want it? Or do you need it? When you need it, that's when it happens. Turn your want tos into need tos. One of the best way to do that? Tell people what you're doing. And find yourself a great accountability manager. Not talking about an accountability partner. I'm talking about someone that's going to hold you accountable. Pay somebody to hold you accountable. If you can't find somebody to hold you accountable, reach out to our team, and they'll give you some information about our accountability programs. 150 people started. 60, or thereabouts, finished 17 summits. Almost 2/3 of the field did not make it up 17 times. But all 150 participants were winners. They did something that the other 7 billion people on this planet will never attempt. And for that, I will be forever grateful for the experience and will always share a common bond with each and every one of them. Get out there and challenge yourself. Do something that you didn't think is possible. Do something that really expands what is possible. Become more. And when you do, send me a note because I'd love to celebrate with you. Have an amazing day. Thank you so much for listening today. I really do appreciate your time, and I hope you found today's show valuable. If you would like to receive these shows automatically to your phone or to your computer, simply go to iTunes and subscribe. After listening to several of the shows, if you're so inclined, please leave us a 5-star rating, as this helps us reach additional people and spread the message. If you're truly committed to taking your life to the next level and doing whatever it takes to become a peak performer, but something's holding you back, something is blocking your way, and you just can't seem to figure out what it is? Send me an email to info@thorconklin.com, and I'd be more than happy to get on the phone with you. We'll schedule a 15-minute discovery call. No obligation, no cost. I absolutely love to hear from the listeners, and if there's something I can do to help, I'd be more than happy to do that. Also, if you found something of great interest in today's show and you want to share that with your friends and family, simply go to my Facebook page, Thor Conklin, click on the episode, hit the share button, and share it on your page. You can follow me at Twitter at Thor Conklin. The website is thorconklin.com. We're constantly adding new free resources, discussing additional tricks, tips, tools, and strategies on how to be a peak performer. Remember, I try to keep these episodes short so you can listen to them during dot time, doing other things, commuting, driving, walking, working out. Decide to be a peak performer in all that you do. And until tomorrow, have an absolutely amazing day.